KFC 3-piece meal deal. Get 3 pieces of chicken, fries, mac and cheese, a biscuit, and a drink. All for just $2,200. It's the perfect deal, available every day. Enjoy your 3-piece meal deal at KFC today. KFC, it's finger-licking good.
Looking for quality lumber for your dream home or an upcoming project? Then make Builders Lumberyard your premier provider. We provide a full selection of rough and dress lumber, such as Green Heart, Purple Heart, Kabakali, all types of mixed hardwood, Silver Bali, Ditarma, and many other species. We also stock clean and knotted pine doors in various sizes, Qualable posts, farm boards, plywood, and all types of molding. Orders can be cut to any specification and delivered to your worksite. With over 25 years of experience in the lumber industry, we are determined to provide a quality lumber that meets our home builders and contractors' every need. Builders Lumberyard and you will always be a winning combination. Visit our main office at 12 Lombard and Deroy Street or our branch office at 66 Ben Street, Georgetown, or telephone 225-9530 227-0904.
For more than 3 decades, Dave's West Indian Imports has been supplying the demands of Guyanese living in the USA with their favorite Guyanese products: Pomeroon coconut water, fresh fish, shrimp and crab, champion chow mein, icy sodas, golden cream margarine, wiri wiri pepper, katahar and casrib, just to name a few. If you have family from Trinidad and Tobago and Jamaica, Dave's has them covered too. 9807 97th Avenue, Ozone Park, New York, only 5 minutes away from Liberty Avenue. 11808 Liberty Avenue, Richmond Hill, New York. 7505 New Hampshire Avenue, Tacoma Park, Maryland. The Caribbean market. Dave's West Indian Imports, supplying the best of the Caribbean to the USA.
Now Milko has done it again. We've listened to you, and now available nationwide. Another convenient size packaging of Thunderbolt all-purpose flour. It's here, the 5 kg or 11 pounds new packaging of Thunderbolt all-purpose flour. Now available at your nearest supermarket.
Now Milko, National Milling Company of Guyana.
Yeah, welcome to another program of the Sean Dever Sports Watch. It's the first Tuesday in the year 2026. It's January 6th. Happy New Year to everybody. I'm Sean Devers again, welcoming you to another program of the Sean Devers Sports Watch. We talk West Indies cricket tonight with CEO of the CWI, Chris Daring, and Leeward Islands Cricket Administrator and broadcaster Vernon Springer out of Antigua. That's where the CWI head office is located. This program comes to you with the compliments of Dave's West Indian Imports, KFC, Milko, Builders Lumberyard, and Survival Supermarket. Remember, Survival Supermarket has got another branch now. They've recently launched their Diamond branch on the east bank of Demerara. And of course, KFC has got a crazy Tuesday deal starting from today. Goes every Tuesday for the month of January. If you purchase three-piece combo, you get an extra piece free. So this is where we start the program. Good night to everybody, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, across the length and breadth of the 3,000 square miles of Guyana and wherever else you might be looking and listening to this program. We want to talk on West Indies cricket, but let's talk about give you an update on the Ashes. The final test is being played. I think they're gone into lunch now. England made 384, Root 160, Harry Book 84, and Australia began the fourth day on 518 with Smith on 29. Before that, Head made 163. Smith, though, only added 9 to his overnight score. He fell for 138. And, of course, Webster, towards the end, important 71, as Australia were bowled out for 567, meaning that England need to wipe off 183 to put runs on the board for Australia to win. All right, women's T20 Blaze, they're going to start in St. Vincent on the 13th. Guyana team thinking they will leave on the 10th. They had a practice session 2 days, but they were hampered by rain. So they can't do anything about the weather. Guyana played the Windward Islands in the first round. Jamaica played the Leewards, and Barbados play Trinidad and Tobago. There's a lots of cricket in the first 2 months of this year for West Indies, all ages, all genders. The Under-19 World Cup starts on the 15th with the young West Indians coming up against Tanzania. And on Monday, January 19th, the T20 ICC World Cup. No, that's, will start. No, ICC World Cup will be starting on February 7th. West Indies playing their first match against Bangladesh in India. But there's bad news. We heard yesterday that Bangladesh has refused to travel to India, and they're playing the first match there. Well, that's a couple of weeks before something might be sorted out. We'll talk to Chris about that. And the West Indies, they play, before that, they go to play a 3-match series against Afghanistan, 3-match 2020 series starting on the 19th, and then on the 27th they go to South Africa to start another 3-match 2020 series against South Africa. So as we said, lots of cricket. Of course, the women's 50 over. CG United starts on the 27th. Both tournaments will be played in St. Lucia, Guyana. Last year. They won the T20 Blades. They'll be looking now to create the double. Good evening to you, gentlemen. Let's start with the bad news first. Well, I don't know if it's totally bad news. Bangladesh, Chris, they've refused to go to India, and West Indies play the first match in the ICC Men's World Cup against them. What's the latest update on that?
Well, we know as much as you at this point. There's nothing has been decided as yet. Bangladesh have expressed their concerns, and look, there's always, little headaches before tournaments of this nature, and of course with the geopolitical situation between Bangladesh, India, Pakistan, there's always going to be some kind of drama, but I'm sure they'll sort it out eventually.
All right. Happy New Year to you both, Vernon
New Year,
Springer.
yes.
Yeah. And Chris, again, has the West Indies team been officially announced?
The World Cup team hasn't been announced as yet, no. Going through the final, selection, rationalization, and so on. That will be announced in due course. Right now, we're focused more on, we're just getting off our youngsters to the T20, to the Under-19 World Cup, and looking for some big things there.
Yeah, they play Tanzania in the first match. That's on January 3rd. When?
I guess 15th or the 16th? 16th?
Yeah, the 19th. No, that's yeah, they play when they play Tanzania on the 15th of January. Right. Vernon, how are you today? How
Giving God thanks.
Yeah.
And as almost with everyone, the start of the new year is about resolutions.
Mm-hmm. Now,
And I
what's
think
yours?
this year, more or less, I think we really have to look at every aspect of sport, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And sometimes there come a point in time in your life where circumstances force you to confront a crossroads with a K.
Mm.
And I think when we look around, we see that West Indies cricket is at a crossroads.
Mm-hmm.
Tonight we have the CEO, the 8th CEO of Cricket West Indies on our program here with us. And I hope that we can be able to have a real honest conversation where we could be able to dialogue with Chris Derwin some more in terms of the challenges. Over the last year, you would have heard Chris outlining some financial challenges that Cricket West Indies is facing. And so these are realistic challenges, and with all of the geopolitics that are taking place in the region, we have to kind of pay attention not only to cricket, but even to the FIFA World Cup, even to the Olympics in 2028. All of these factors could be hampered. You realize what Chris just said just a while ago. You have a situation there where you have some political tension between Bangladesh and India. And so governments have stepped in and decided that, well, listen, there's going to be no IPL coverage in Bangladesh in 2026. So you see how these things are escalating, how we look at it. So whenever we get a chance tonight, once the debate, and again, Sean, I just want to say Happy New Year to all of your listeners and all of your sponsors. And for us to be able to have a meaningful conversation tonight, my focus of concentration tonight would really be on women's cricket in the Caribbean.
Yes,
and how we're treating, and hold on, Sean, and how we're treating it. So as we go on, I'll be able to expound a little bit more on my thoughts on that.
Well, the women's tournament starts on the 13th. As I said, Guyana playing the Windwards, Jamaica playing the Leewards, and Barbados playing Trinidad and Tobago. Chris, all systems are in place for that tournament, which will be held in St. Vincent?
Yes, St. Vincent is as good a host as anyone else in the Caribbean, and so we're looking forward to them hosting the T20 Blaze. We expect a good tournament. It's a lot of cricket that's going to take place in this early part of the year for the women, between the T20 Blaze, and we have another upcoming series as well. And then you have the under-19s playing at the same time in the World Cup. So we're going to have a lot of cricket over the next first 2 months of the year, because that leads into the T20 World Cup in India and Sri Lanka.
And of course, the women are set to play Test cricket since 2000 and 2006. They've not played a Test match. They're playing against Australia, and then they're playing against South Africa. How do you go about picking? Well, you're not a selector, but on behalf of the CWI, how would you like to go about picking a West Indies Test team? They've not played red ball cricket. Well, none of the players have played red ball cricket, because Charmaine Campbell started her first class Guyana career in 2006. She's the most experienced player in the Guyana team, but none of them have played red ball cricket at the international level. Is that a problem?
Well, obviously, it's not ideal, but these are talented ladies, and they're very experienced as well. So you're hoping that they can translate some of that experience from the white ball to the red ball. We've been having numerous training camps here in Antigua at High Performance Center. So we've even had them, had some very interesting spells where we had the academy males playing with the ladies, to sort of get them accustomed to quicker bowling, different types of bowlers, that type of thing. So, it's been quite an interesting experiment to try and accommodate and try and translate what they know in the white ball game to the red ball, and have them as best prepared as possible. So I think they're looking forward to test themselves. So you can't want for better attitudes for these ladies who are dying to show what they can do at the test level.
Varnam, you are in Antigua. What would be your suggestion for the transition from white ball, which they've only played, to red ball cricket for the females when they come up in March and April in those test matches in Australia and South Africa?
Sean, it's not a matter about transition, but I think that we have to ask ourselves some serious questions. The development of the women's game in the Caribbean, whose responsibility it lies on? Because too many people are passing the buck to Cricket West Indies. And I think the onus really should be on territorial boards.
Yep.
And so let's look at And let me applaud the Windward Islands Cricket Board because they're having a competition right now, a T20 competition, so which means that they're moving into a cycle and getting prepared for the Cricket West Indies Championship, which will be in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. It was wonderful to see Afi Fletcher showing her own form and scoring 100 in that tournament there. So he's showing as a senior pro who's been around for some time. But I'm almost concerned about the women's cricket in Guyana. I'm concerned about the women's cricket in Jamaica because I saw the Jamaica team playing against a Masters team over the weekend in terms of preparation for this tournament. I'm concerned also about the women's cricket in the Leeward Islands because while everybody else is maybe having a competition, the Leewards did not have a competition and maybe don't have enough girls to form a competition. And originally, you would have had St. Kitts, you'd have had Nevis, and you'd have had Antigua and Barbuda playing before in the Leeward Islands competition. That is not taking place today, which is also very scary. So I beg to ask, because everybody is pointing the finger at Cricket West Indies. But if Cricket West Indies is organizing tournaments, it should be the role of territorial boards to have development plans in place for women's cricket, and not only women's cricket, but girls' cricket and women's cricket. Vice versa, the same thing should happen to youth cricket, where in every respective territory, be it St. Kitts, Nevis, Antigua, there should be a development plan, and we should have technical coaches that are aligned to be able to help us. So I applaud Cricket West Indies, as Chris said. There have been 20 girls who've been training at the High Performance Center in Antigua and Barbuda under the head coach, and they've been going through their drills. But while that is happening, the rest of the Caribbean or the women's program throughout the entire Caribbean is a cause for concern. Because when a Stephanie Taylor and a Deandra Dottin and company walk away, who's going to be the next crop of young ladies that are going to be coming out that are ready to be able to take that mantle to the next level? So if we don't come up with a development plan, let me say this, tournament is not development. We have to come up with a comprehensive plan to encourage girls and ladies to get involved by playing cricket. If you don't have a development plan in the respective territories, then it's going to put a strain on Cricket West Indies to be able to pick the best cricketers. When Courtney Walsh was there, under his leadership, he tried to have an A team. The issue what you had is that when most of the young ladies left Antigua and Barbuda and they went back to their respective territories, the core of the coaching or the seriousness of territorial boards dealing seriously with the issues of women's cricket in terms of preparation, their nutrition, the menstrual cycle, all of those things, somebody just dropped the ball and everybody left it. So I think going forward, we must come up with a comprehensive plan to be able to promote women's cricket in the Caribbean. And I say that, Sean, finally, because the Antigua and Barbuda Falcons, which is going into its third year, we were championing a cause to have a fourth women's CPL team. But when you weigh up all of the logistics, you found out that, boy, you didn't have the quality of people. And that is something that I think that the CPL also will have a challenge with, where everybody is saying, yes, we're supposed to play more cricket and we're supposed to have women's cricket. But we also have to look at the quality that we're producing in the Caribbean, because nobody's going to spend money on something which don't have quality. So we seriously have to address that and come up with a comprehensive plan.
Well, I must commend the Guyana Cricket Board. They had an inter-county tournament, which for the first time included a team from the hinterland. And in fact, one of the girls from the hinterland, Miss Benjamin, she got into the Guyana 14-man squad, 14-member squad. But they had a practice session today and yesterday at the Luziknan ground. But I would further back your point, saying that there should be a cricket committee for women in the West Indies. That's nothing new. It was back in the days when Guyana had the women's cricket tournament, and they had Miss Emily Dotson, attorney at law. She was a part of it. Mark Harper was the PRO. We were part of the women's cricket, which left some of the rigors of doing everything from the Guyana Cricket Board itself, but I was part of the Guyana Cricket Board. Chris, is there anything that suggests that that could be back again in all of the countries?
Well, I want to address it from I guess, a more holistic perspective. One of the challenges we have, for instance, within the windwards, within the leewards, and of course the Jamaicas, Guyanas don't have this excuse, is that as an individual country, your cricket infrastructure, in terms of how you're developing your individual teams, your ladies teams, your men's teams, don't necessarily get exposed, so that you get the national fervor, you get the national exposure, and people concerned and raising the issue and challenging the local cricket association, your government, to rally behind a cause. So I don't think people truly appreciate what could possibly be taking place in this hemisphere as it relates to individual countries participating in tournaments like the Bolivarian Games that they just did in Lima, Peru. You're going to have the Pan Am Games very shortly, and in fact, later this year, we will most likely have the Pan Am qualifiers in the Caribbean, where individual territories now who have Olympic Association affiliation will have to qualify through a tournament, which we intend to put on, to go to the Pan American Games in Lima, Peru. And this male and female, understand? So, it will be a St. Vincent having to compete with a Barbados, with a Jamaica, and so on. St. Kitts having to compete to get to the Pan American Games. But that is just the precursor for the bigger one, which is the Olympic Games.
Yeah.
And again, you're going to have individual countries participating, male and female. So what tends to happen is because I guess the prestige of winning the regional tournament isn't as great as, for instance, of yesteryear, when in the days of Shell Shield, to win the Shell Shield, for instance, was a major event. But nowadays, because of the growth of international cricket, and of course, West Indies is the international team, individual countries participating in these tournaments and winning these tournaments, you don't get necessarily the national support, the national outpouring, the political ambition, and so on. Jamaica winning the Shell Caribbean Cup back in the old days is nothing compared to Jamaica getting to the Football World Cup,
Yeah.
or Trinidad getting to the Football World Cup. And so when you now have individual countries that are going to get this opportunity to parade on the world stage, whether it be Pan American Games, Bolivarian Games in South America, and so on, we're hoping that this will help to drive and spur some of that development, Vernon, and really expose the countries. And we know the Caribbean pride, that, St. Vincent all of a sudden, or St. Kitts sees St. Vincent or Antigua getting to the Pan American Games, or even getting to the Olympic qualifying tournaments and so on. I don't think the Kittitians and the Antiguans are going to, stand by and allow that just to happen without them making greater effort as well. So we have to create that incentive where you have this big starry objective, not just for the association, but also for the players. Because when people can see the opportunity of traveling the world, when I went to the Bolivarian Games in Peru, and the teams were so excited to be in somewhere new, Lima, Peru, playing in a tournament. We had Jamaica winning the ladies section, and I believe Barbados won the men's. But it was more than that. It was exposure to South America, a whole new world for us to conquer as a cricketing nation. And I think that is going to help quite significantly in the coming year. So if you don't think about it in today's realm, but think about if in the next 10, 15, 20 years, you have this regular cadence every year of qualifications for Pan American Games, qualifications for Bolivarian Games, qualification for even the South American Games, qualification for the Olympic Games. And so countries and national teams get international exposure, which will then hopefully help to spur some more investment from individual governments in their national programs, and of course, greater exposure of the local cricket associations for them to you know, be energized to take advantage of what's going to be taking place.
All
And
right.
Sean, just let me counteract very quickly to what Chris was saying. And I'm talking from cricket as compared to track and field. This is track and field term right now in the Caribbean, which is going to go from January to March. Then you have most territories which are organized with football. The issue we are having in the Caribbean is that enough primary school cricket is not being played in most of the territories across the region. And it's a matter of fact that we have to face. So I love what Chris is saying, that yes, it sounds individual, that countries are going to get a chance to play in the Pan Am Games and all of the other areas. But we still need to be able to have a development plan. What is going to be the plan for girls in Jamaica, in St. Vincent, in St. Kitts, in Antigua? What is going to be the program rolled out for those young girls to be able to be introduced into cricket? Who is
Vernon,
mandated
the
to
point I'm
outline
making
that?
though, yeah, but I totally agree with you. The point I'm making though is that generally to get those plans energized, funded, implemented, you have to have some kind of incentive at the end of the day. The Olympics does that for the track and field world. Football World Cup does that for the football world. Because you have this big shiny object in the sky, the Olympic dream. You have these kids in primary school in Jamaica running and training and so on. They're not thinking about the money. They're thinking about the glory of the Olympics. They're seeing the Olympic stage. They want to get one day to the Olympics. And so that helps to create the pipeline. That's what we're trying to do. We're trying to create this production pipeline. But to start the production pipeline, you really need the big shiny object at the end. What is the pot of gold at the end that is going to drive the production pipeline? So once you have that, the end result, the pipeline, the pot of gold at the end, you can now incentivize how the pipeline gets built. How do we pull the raw material into that pipeline, those kids, and so on? It's one thing to have a developmental plan for primary school cricket, Vernon. But if you don't have kids wanting to participate in that pipeline, you really are fighting against the stream. You're swimming against the stream. So by creating some excitement about having this Olympic dream, maybe getting to the Olympics one day in cricket, maybe getting to CPL does that to some extent because it creates again a shiny object that kids can aspire to, and they see the stars, they see the glory and so on. And so you energize the sport. But we're going to have to put in place all the other elements of the developmental pipeline. There's no question about that. But what I'm just talking about is that creating that shiny object, that incentive that you can say to a government, hey, the reason why you need to start this pipeline is because you want St. Kitts to end up at the Olympic Games. That will be the sort of message that, hey, governments might stand up and listen. But if you just go to them and say, hey, listen, we want to put in place this developmental pipeline, we need this kind of funding, and basically St. Kitts is going to play in the Leeward Islands tournament, not the same incentive.
Well, last month, Guyana had a bilateral series on the 13 cricketers with Barbados, and sometime this year there's going to be a reciprocal tournament in Barbados, and that's good for that age group. But how is sponsorship going, and how getting the CARICOM involved in funding cricket? Because I see the women's tournament has reduced from 5 rounds to 3 rounds, and of course, you already said the under 19 tournament will only be the under 19. There'll be no regional under 15 and under 17. All of those are disadvantaged by lack of funding. How do you see CARICOM helping this, and how is sponsorship going?
Well, first of all, when I joined your program, Sean, I was very impressed about the list of sponsorships and ads we had to listen through before we get to speak. But so congratulations, you've clearly been able to attract very good sponsors. So look, Cricket West Indies and the structure of cricket in the West Indies has got to go through a total re-engineering. because as I've mentioned before in other programs, the world of cricket and the financial world of cricket is going through an upheaval at the moment. There are lots of headwinds when it comes to things like bilateral cricket, which basically we have relied on over many years to help fund our domestic cricket. Television rights are not as robust as they were in yesteryear because of various conditions that have changed around the world, whether through mergers and acquisitions. The attractiveness of bilateral cricket and the context of bilateral cricket is just not as understood by fans as easily as a domestic franchise tournament where you're going to have a winner right away and a champion crowned, etc., etc. And of course, you have the World Cups now happening much more frequently. We have the T20 World Cups every 2 years. We have the Cricket World Cup every 4 years. And between that, we have the Champions Trophy and so on. So there's lots of challenges out there in the world television market that is impacting Cricket West Indies. Everybody else is also being impacted. Let's not fool ourselves. It's just that others would have had significant reserves to draw on to see them through. So we are a challenge. And so how, if you think about it, 50 years ago, Cricket West Indies had to fund and host and fund one tournament, the Shell Sheet, a regional 4-day tournament that was one round of five matches per and so on. And Cricket West Indies paid for everything for that one tournament. Remember, there was only one form of cricket, Test cricket. So you had Cricket West Indies paying for players' fees, match fees, flights, accommodations, everything for that one tournament. What has happened over 50 years is that you have now 3 forms of the game, T20, ODIs, and Test cricket. You have various age group levels, whether it be under 15, under 13, under 17, under 19, and you now have male and female in all of those categories. So you've ended up, because of how cricket has been structured, we've virtually sleptwalk into doing it the same way for everything. So Cricket West Indies has to pay for everything, pays for every flight, every accommodation, match fees, all player salaries, and you think about it, there's no other sport in the region where that happens. When Jamaica had to play Trinidad in a FIFA World Cup qualifier, Jamaica had to find the money to fly down to Trinidad to honor that fixture. Trinidad then had to find the return fixture and to find their way up to Jamaica. It wasn't FIFA paying for everybody to fly around the place, even though it was a FIFA World Cup qualifier. And so we've ended up in a situation where Cricket West Indies is hosting all of these tournaments. And it does not matter whether it's an under-19 tournament or a senior men's tournament. The cost of an airline seat is the same. You don't get a discount. And I had meetings recently, where was that? December, with the ECB, and we were just talking about what was happening in the world of cricket, and we're doing some cost comparisons. When the ECB puts on a tournament in England, and they're moving a team from one venue to the next, it costs the ECB roughly £1,200. That's buses, luxury buses, or train or whatever. When we move from one venue to the next, no matter whether it's under 19 or it's senior men's or it's international team,
You have to fly.
You have to fly. So it would cost us on average 250,000 US. That is the kind of difference in scale. And yet they're earning far more than we do, and so on. So and those are not challenges or issues the Cricket West Indies can solve. I can't solve the airlift capacity of the region, the infrastructure of the region. And you'll hear the criticism, well, why you don't do this? And it's like, wow, well, if I could do that, I could solve many other challenges that the Caribbean faces quite outside of cricket. So those are real innate structural challenges that Cricket West Indies faces. The other thing is that we have a very tiny domestic market. So, it's all well and good to say, we're the sponsors. Yes, you could get a sponsor for $10,000, $20,000, $30,000, $40,000, I'm sure. But when you're talking about just the airlift from one tournament to one venue to the next is 200,000, it's a drop in the bucket for what is needed. And it's very difficult to get the sponsorship values to equate to the actual costs. It's just not possible. And that's just a financial economic formula. You'll always have that imbalance of the Caribbean because it's very expensive to do business here because of the infrastructure. And of course, the revenue upside remember, these are companies trying to make money. There's no marketing or commercial officer is going to invest their money because they love West Indies cricket. They have goals to meet. They're not going to risk their jobs to invest in West Indies cricket with a sponsorship versus just buying ads on television or buying ads on social media because they're trying to sell their products. So you're always in that competitive frame of mind. So you can get sponsorships, but the quantums versus what you need is not there. So I say all of this to say, look, we have to re-engineer. We have to re-engineer how we do things. Using greater technology in the cricket. Technology has been a great equalizer. So we're exploring all types of avenues. I don't want to let the cat out of the bag on some of them, but it has a lot to do with trying to see how we can utilize technology to overcome some of these infrastructure issues. I'll tell you, there's a reason why airline pilots, racing drivers, and a number of other athletes, golfers, are being trained in, for instance, in simulators now as much hours as real-time flying hours, for instance, as a pilot, because of cost. They've found a way to simulate training of a pilot so they can accumulate as many hours as they can in a simulator, even before they get to take care of us in the air and so on. So there are lots of things that we're exploring because we have to re-engineer. We just simply can't, close our eyes and continue to do the things that we're doing now in the same way because we simply can't afford it.
All right. Before Vernon jumps in, I want to say we'll go for pause for business calls. But before that, I remember when I played my fourth year, National Under-19 cricket. We went to Jamaica playing for Guyana. My sister made the badminton team the same year, and we had to go begging almost for her sponsorship to travel. And the West Indies board, all we had to do was play well, get picked, pack our bags, and all was solved. And that was the difference with, as you said, cricket and most other sports. So you're bang on target with that. And now the funds have dried up. They've got more cricket. Let's go for business calls because I've got my sponsors also to give mileage to.
Surprise your family today with a nice vanilla flavored cake made with Maid Marian cake flour. It's perfect for the birthday, anniversary, special occasion, or just celebrating the joy of having your family together. So get a pack or two of Maid Marian cake flour to make that moist, fluffy, vanilla flavored sponge cake, donut shaped cakes, Swiss rolls, and other delicious baked goods. Bring on the smiles with Maid Marian cake flour. Made and packaged not by hand by Nomilco, the National Milling Company of Guyana.
National Milling Company of Guyana.
Dave's West Indian Imports is a wholesaler of all types of seafood with their own processing plant. Dave supplies supermarkets, restaurants, hotels, and bars. Place your orders now on telephone 501-4087 or 644-8999. With fresh seafood daily, Dave's offers custom cuts of your choice: snapper, trout, banga, gillback, shrimp, crab, and more. Order today. Dave's, Guyana's largest exporter to the USA.
Craving a meal that's big on flavor but doesn't break the bank? KFC has got you covered with the KFC 3-piece meal deal. Get 3 pieces of chicken, fries, mac and cheese, a biscuit, and a drink. All for just $2,200. It's the perfect deal, available every day. Enjoy your 3-piece meal deal at KFC today. KFC, it's finger licking good.
Yeah, well, welcome back to the Sean Dever Sports Watch. Vernon Springer was going to comment on what Chris Daring said. Go ahead, Vernon.
Sean, let's look at the Caribbean on a whole. And we're talking about air travel. We know air travel in the Caribbean is a challenge. But we also know that it's a benefit for sports in the Caribbean. And I maybe just want to maybe just single out the Carifta Games, which is normally held during the Easter period, where you have a cadre of countries who will be journeying to the Spice Isle Grenada this year to participate in the Carifta Games. And while journeying, they're also going to be working with supporters. I've seen a model which has been established for the last 4 or 5 years in Antigua and Barbuda, where there's a competition between Trinidad and Tobago and Barbados under 15 teams coming to Antigua for the Cricket West Indies under 15, where their supporting staff, including Guyana as well, because I see Guyana has jumped in, has escalated now, where they're working with their parents and their families for this tournament that is coming to Antigua and Barbuda. For the last 4 or 5 years, like I said, it's a major competition between Trinidad and Tobago and Barbados. In fact, the last competition, Barbados had close to about 50-odd persons. Trinidad and Tobago was not too far behind, about 40-odd. Guyana was just in the maybe teens. The point I'm saying is, when we are meeting with CARICOM, and I listen to Chris quietly, and the cost that Cricket West Indies spend on airline, if the Caribbean governments, who sometimes like to talk about sports tourism, and if they're really serious and if they really got the proper data, and Cricket West Indies has the data, I've heard Chris Daring outline how much money they've spent with Caribbean Airlines, how much money they've spent with whoever, or airlines in general, nobody in particular, but he's outlined what the cost is. The time has come where we really need to seriously sit down with CARICOM based on the data and the numbers that we have, not only for cricket, but for football and for track and field, and to figure out a plan in terms of how do we get CARICOM to be able to make sure that we get incentives off that can help the sporting associations in the Caribbean. Because Dominica went to the last Olympics and won their first gold medal, in long jump.
What is the economic value of that to Dominica?
Right, I'm coming. Julian Alfred is the Olympic women's champion, right? So I'm going down the road by indicating that the presentation must be made where when you bring the CARICOM heads in front of you, whether it be the Minister of Sports or whether the Prime Ministers, we're not just only looking at cricket, but we're looking at sports to say, look here, Chris Daring from the Commonwealth of Dominica won a gold medal. These are the margins as to what the traction has caused, because when Chris Daring won that gold medal, everybody was trying to find out where is Dominica.
Yep.
Julian Alfred is a queen all around the world because she's the Olympic champion. So we have to start to be able to sensitize the enablers and the gatekeepers who are blocking the progress to understand when they're talking about sports tourism, what impact sports can make. Because you know what's happening? We have a lot of people who are turning up at the various airports in the Caribbean just to take photos, but still don't seem to be able to understand that they're in decision-making positions where they can be able to make a difference to ease the pressure, be it on football, cricket, or track and field, if they came up with a model that would be able to support at least even youth sports. Well, so if we have a team for reference, Sean and Chris, going to the Sir Garfield Sober Schools competition in Barbados, we should be encouraging people in the Caribbean who play school cricket to participate in that tournament. That now will be another avenue for Cricket West Indies to be able to send their scouts to look at the new talent. We all know where Brian Lara came from. Brian Lara came from a school that went to the Sir Garfield Sobers competition in Barbados, and we know the history between what is happening behind that. So I'm saying we need to, when we go to CARICOM, yes, CARICOM is responsible for infrastructure, because Cricket West Indies don't own any cricket ground. So you still have to rely on CARICOM. But there are a number of challenges that are facing sports in the Caribbean. And for sports to survive, ALF is one of the real issues that we are going to have to deal with. Based on what Chris was saying, because in the Caribbean, our private sector is small. So which means that if Darren Corporation has a budget of $250,000, that $250,000 has to be spread across everything: social programs, football, cricket, golf, you name it. And we have to understand that cricket is one of the most expensive sports in the Caribbean.
Well, let
It's
me
an expensive
interject
venture.
here. In terms of Guyana, the Ministry of Culture, Youth and Sports, the minister within the ministry is Stephen Jacobs. He played West Indies youth, and he's a former first-class player. The president of Guyana is a good lover of cricket, and also Charles Ramson, the Minister of Sport. He played First Division cricket for Everest, so that's cricket. But all the other sports except cricket, which, as Chris said, CWI funds, they pay part of the fee that is required for accommodation and these things. If the host doesn't provide accommodation, they provide the airfare. That's a new thing with the Guyana government, maybe because the advent of the oil and gas industry and so on. But they do that. I think they're the only Caribbean government that funds touring teams going out to represent Guyana.
Well, that's a very creditable, and we've had, some really good discussions with Minister Ramson, with Steve Jacobs, and of course the president. President Ali is not just a lover of cricket; he understands what is happening in the world of cricket. He has clearly taken the time to try and understand what is actually happening in the international industry of cricket. And so when you do have the discussions with him, he knows what he's talking about. So we're very hopeful of that partnership growing with CARICOM to see how we can help to resolve some of the issues. But we can't just rely on governments. That's the reality of all sports. If you rely totally on government, governments resources are always going to be challenged, pulled from here to there from time to time. But you did mention, Vernon mentioned Carifta. Look at the Carifta model. Carifta Grenada is hosting and is paying for the hosting. And of course, the individual countries are flying their teams there and are paying for their own way to get the teams there to Carifta. There was no central organization that's just paying for everybody. So that's a very good example. So look, we're going to have to go through a whole re-engineering as to how we manage these tournaments. Maybe, when the Pan Am Games qualifiers come around, we just invite countries to participate in the Pan Am Games qualifiers, and who comes, and who comes gets the chance to qualify. And similarly, maybe the Olympic Games might be done that way. But we know we can't continue the current way because there's just simply enough money at the center. And when you think about it, other countries, one of the big advantages they have, those bigger economies, there are new corporations of scale being formed every day, whether it be in tech, the industries, and so on. In the Caribbean, you don't get new companies of scale being launched every day. You don't. And what you'll find is sports sponsorships work best for companies that want to develop just brand value, want to get their brand out there. And so we also have that issue. We're gonna keep going back to the same large companies in the Caribbean that generally for sponsorships every time. And after a while, it becomes less effective for them as an advertising avenue, because their brands are already out there. And so you're not going to be able to add value, the kind of value added in terms of brand exposure and so on, brand recognition, that would benefit a new company trying to establish a brand. And so that's also one of the challenges. You just look around the world, you'll see the biggest sponsorships paid by companies that are trying to establish some kind of brand, whether it be a brand in a new country, or a new industry,
or a new brand,
expansion, and so on. Or a whole new product.
Can I challenge? Can I just say something, Chris? And let me applaud Cricket West Indies for taking the legends to India. But I'm also now saying, as maybe time come where maybe we need to look at a American tour in the diaspora to see how best we could be able to maybe arrange
Possible.
and get some sponsorship or some funding with that we can be able to help with the development or whatever aspect of the game. I'm saying while we have the legends, how can we use them in the diaspora? We don't have to go all over the United States of America, but for reference, you maybe can organize a setting with the Hall of Fame folks in Connecticut. And then you maybe can carry that maybe to Atlanta. Then you maybe can carry that to Florida. With a view of West Indian heritage. People who are involved in the game, would have lived in the United States of America, or from wherever, and say, listen, hey, guys, we seriously need some help. You know, I come from, we're
So
at a
they're different.
crossroads.
They're different products for different. So what I'm talking about is corporate sponsorship, which is really a business-driven brand exposure, very scientific commercial budget. The other side is that there is significant goodwill out there. And you mentioned the trip with the legends, and I will tell you, I was blown away. And these are cricketers that I admired, of course, growing up, but I didn't truly appreciate the incredible love for our cricketers and the legends and what West Indies cricketers had done until I actually took these guys. Viv Richards is a walking god in India. I think he outshone even Brian. And I kind of thought it would have been Brian would have been the one that created the fervor, but Viv is just an absolute idol. They just idolized in India. It was just incredible to see the kind of corporate doors that opened and how they fawned over him. It was incredible. But the challenge you have is you're going to get in the door in corporate India because of them. They're not going to invest money because of that. You still have to have a solid business case and so on. But the people that might contribute are individuals who might want to subscribe, who might want to just, give us all a donation, subscription towards West Indies cricket, become a supporter, an official supporter, become, getting tickets to matches, getting a signed shirt by the legends and so on. So we're definitely exploring all of those options right now, Vernon. As I said, we're at you said it, we're at a crossroads and we have to re-engineer. So we're going to look at every potential aspect, every potential avenue of trying to change the financial model that supports West Indies cricket.
All right, we've got about 5 minutes left on the program. Let's talk about now the regional 4-day cricket. It's for the first time ever, it's going to be held in Antigua in April. How did that come about? I know it might be lack of funding. You want all the teams in one country at the same time, one flight and so on. Is that format different from last year?
Yeah, well, I wasn't around really last year except towards the end, but
yeah, they played 7 rounds because they had CCC and the academy.
It's going to be shorter. It's going to be shorter. It's going to be in Antigua for all those very reasons. And quite frankly, we own a ground here in Antigua, so again that helps with the costs and managing the costs, etc.
Vernon, a quick question. I know that...
And of course, Sean, you have to remember also, there's a lot of cricket being played this year.
Yeah.
And so we really have to try and manage where we play matches, how many matches we try and host, because it doesn't matter whether it's an international game or a domestic 4-day game. We're hosting it. Cricket West Indies has to host, meaning we're paying for all the costs. So we have to be very... prudent about how we manage this year.
Vernon, you're in Antigua. I know there's College and there's the Sir Vivian Richards Stadium. Is the ARG capable of hosting a cricket match? I know when I was last there, the government was doing some work on the ground, which was previously used for football. How is the facilities in Antigua for this regional tournament? You have to get 3 grounds.
Well, we have more than 3 grounds at the moment. I will say to you that the Antigua Recreation Ground is going to be ready and has been ready. In fact, it's hosted matches for the Cricket West Indies under 15 team, the Leeward Islands Hurricanes, in their preparation for the Super 50, trained at the Antigua Recreation Ground. The other ground, which I know that the government is also working on, is Kenny Benjamin's ground, the PIC, the Bertha Black Hawk ground in the Bertha. So that's also another alternative venue. Another ground which is also coming on stream too, which is going to take quite some work, is the police ground in St. John's, Antigua and Barbuda. They had some challenges up there with the water, but there are some engineers who will be moving in speedily. And for the matches which were held in the 2024 World Cup, the government of Antigua and Barbuda did invest. And that was what you use as one of the practice venues. So work and communication is taking place again at the police ground. So Cricket West Indies, sooner rather than later, will be able to, because the headquarters is in Antigua and Barbuda, I think the government of Antigua and Barbuda stepped up in a way to be able to make sure that they're empowered to get more grounds up and running that can help with hosting or even training facilities in Antigua and Barbuda.
All right. Any last thoughts from you, Chris?
Well, look, we don't even talk about our under-19 heading up because quite frankly, Sean and Vernon, I'm quite excited about our under-19 men youngsters going off to the T20, the Youth World Cup, because it's I watched them beat England 5-2 out here just recently, and just to see the level of talent that still exists in the Caribbean. That's what must give us all hope. The level of athletic talent and ability, natural ability. Now we have to hone that ability, and part and parcel of going to events like the World Cup is to hone it. And so I'm really excited to see how they perform on the world stage.
And we've got an international player, Joel Andrews.
Absolutely, but there are a couple of guys there that
Doreen,
the reasons
he's
why
quite a good
we
batter.
didn't bother with the breakout, because some of these guys should be playing in the breakout, and so it wouldn't make sense to have the breakout. And some of these youngsters, even Joshua Dorn, the captain, Van Lange, and we have two wrist spinners. When they operate in tandem, they were a joy to watch against England. They were bamboozling English batsmen. It was just a joy to watch.
And not to cut across, Chris, but I know you're going to tell us we're out of time. When you have such an important cricket program, I beg you already, with all the sponsors you have to get an extra hour.
Well,
Chris said,
find some sponsors for me in Antigua. That would be great.
He wasn't able to get into Expo, but I just want to be able to complement what Chris is saying. We're not short of talent in the Caribbean. I don't want anybody to understand that. We've got the natural talent. What we now need is to be able to begin now to train our cricketers in the mindset. How do we prepare them for the mental world? How do we prepare them for the next level? And not only the cricketers, but we have to also come up with a program to be able to find some technical coaches that can help both our men and women going forward. Because it makes no sense that we have a data analyst at Cricket West Indies, but we don't have a data analyst at the Leeward Island Hurricane level. And all these things cost money. So I'm saying everything has to start from the ground up. We can't be waiting and saying, oh yes, boy, when you get to the West Indies level, you're going to get the best. We have to be able to make sure we put systems in place to help from the bottom up, so that when our time is on this earth is past, at least we would have been able to put the systems in place to be able to make sure that we could once again rise again.
All right, we've quickly run out of time. I've asked some companies what the budget period is now, so they'll maybe commit from February. I like your advice. 2 hours, but we're looking at 1.5 hours. On behalf of Chris Daring and Vernon Springer, I'm Sean Devers saying, if you can be good, then be careful.
Now Milko has done it again. We've listened to you, and now available nationwide. Another convenient size packaging of Thunderbolt all-purpose flour. It's here. The 5 kg or 11 pounds new packaging of Thunderbolt all-purpose flour. Now available at your nearest supermarket.
Now Milko, that's National Milling Company of Guyana.
Attention seafood suppliers, Dave's, the largest purchaser of fresh fish from Guyana, is interested in buying from you. Dave's deeply cares about bolstering the local economy and is looking to begin business with an eager seller of fresh fish and agro products. Dave's needs a constant supply of snapper, butterfish, bangameri, bundari crab, sheriga crab, white-belly shrimp, bon carilo, edo, saijambaji and more. Contact Dave's West Indian Imports at 21 Middle Street, Viceless, East Coast, Demerara. Telephone 501-4087 or 644-8999. Dave's will purchase.
Craving a meal that's big on flavor but doesn't break the bank? KFC has got you covered with the KFC 3-piece meal deal. Get 3 pieces of chicken, fries, mac and cheese, a biscuit, and a drink. All for just $2,200. It's the perfect deal, available every day. Enjoy your 3-piece meal deal at KFC today. KFC, it's finger licking good.
Looking for quality lumber for your dream home or an upcoming project? Then make Builders Lumberyard your premier provider. We provide a full selection of rough and dress lumber, such as Green Heart, Purple Heart, Kabakali, all types of mixed hardwood, Silver Bali, Ditarma, and many other species. We also stock clean and knotted pine doors in various sizes, Qualaba posts, farm boards, plywood, and all types of molding. Orders can be cut to any specification and delivered to your worksite. With over 25 years of experience in the lumber industry, we are determined to provide a quality lumber that meets our home builders'